trolling, fun fishing.
Were you like picking up fish?
Oh no, it was so dead. It was a rough. It was nice, but it was rough. So
Huh.
it is what it is. But yeah, I was just like troll fishing just for fun, and then went beach combing. Just enjoyed the day, you know.
Nice. Yeah, absolutely. Was that with your family or just by yourself?
Oh, it was just with some friends. We
Nice.
just went out for it. Yeah, it was gorgeous. We're like, let's just try it and let's see if we can catch anything. And clearly that didn't happen. But went beach combing and just kind of had some fun. And yeah, just found a bunch of buoys, which was kind of cool, but didn't really need them.
Yeah. Yeah, you're on the outside water there, so you're a lot less protected. You get a lot of probably good beach combing up there.
Oh, it's awesome. Yeah, my goal is to find a beach glass and whatnot. So, yeah. Sorry if I rushed you through dinner or anything.
Oh, no, that's fine. It was nice. We had early dinner, got the baby taken care of it, so it's nice to kind of get this not out of the way, but to record. And sometimes the lead up to it, you just want to just get it done.
Yeah, exactly. So, no, how's the baby doing?
Oh, she's good. She's good. No teeth yet. So when we're feeding her venison or we're feeding her, she just kind of mouths it. Seems to like it. So that's pretty good. But it's crazy the
Nice.
amount
That's
of
awesome.
things I think about in the future, and I can't help but think about, growing up in Southeast and then raising a kid in Southeast. And I hope that she likes the outdoors. She has to like the outdoors. How could she not like the outdoors? But just it's a cool place to grow up.
Exactly. I was thinking the same exact thing with a bunch of my friends. Like, they're all getting married, they're all getting engaged or getting married or having kids. I'm like, it is tough to find a place like Southeast to rate. It's not tough. It's just like we're thankful for this opportunity because we get best of both worlds. Because we're surrounded by water, but at the same time, we still have the advantage of going down south and, checking other places out. Like, the closest I can think that's that's similar to Alaska is like Montana.
Mm-hmm.
The only difference is the road. Like, they have a road system and we just have our ocean.
Yeah. Was that always the plan? Because you grew up in Sitka. Like, did you live anywhere else? Did your parents move there when you were little, or was it your entire life in Sitka?
No, I was born and raised in Sitka, and then after I graduated, I did the junior college route and went to school at North Idaho College, which at that time they switched out of the NJCAA conference and switched to the NWAC the year before I went there. But then just recently I noticed they are back in the NJCAA conference. So, yeah.
And then you went to UAF and played basketball there for 2 years, right?
So I was a walk-on up at Fairbanks and played there for 3 years.
Okay. And that's where you got a degree in fisheries from up there?
I'm trying to think the last time you were talking to my dad. I think at the time I was getting my fisheries degree, but originally when I was going to Idaho, I was going to when I was going to Idaho, I was going to go into education and endorse into special ed, but then I realized I love the outdoors so much. So I was like, I'll just stick with my associates. And once I transferred to Fairbanks, I was going to major in fisheries, but never took chemistry or stats in high school. I was like, this would have been a lot trickier for me if I wasn't prepared for it. So I ended up getting a minor in fisheries, and then I got a degree in communications. But due to COVID, since NCAA gave every student athlete an extra year of eligibility, instead of getting my master's, I ended up getting like a fun little art minor my super senior year.
Nice.
So, yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. But
Yeah, I haven't seen your dad in a while. It was fun. We had a nice little rivalry, a little JV girls basketball rivalry for those years that I was coaching, and I'm pretty sure that I went 2-0 against him. I think the game at Sitka went to overtime, and it's just junior varsity basketball, as wild as it is. Junior varsity girls basketball is even wilder, and it's just fun because it's wild. It's crazy. You kind of have an idea of what you would like to communicate and like to be run on offense and on defense, and that may or may not happen. But it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, I agree. The thing I love about the JV program is you can actually see these kids grow and build their you just see their skills grow and you just see them like build their personalities, and you end up having a really good bond with the student, the kids, and same with the varsity. But there's just always something different about the JV versus varsity, since I think it's just due to varsity's a serious level. But I do miss coaching. I was coach my first year back. I did coach the 7th and 8th grade girls, and I had a great experience. Oops, I had a great experience with them. But yeah, just building that connection with the kiddos for
What
sure.
what impact did your dad have on that? Because obviously you had him as a coach growing up. Like, did that make you want? Did you love the basketball experience even though he was there? Did he kind of coach you at home? Sometimes it's my dad is my coach and I love it and it's great and we're kind of a team. And there's also I resent basketball because my dad loves it and wants me to love it, but it's not my thing. So, or was it like a day-to-day experience?
It was, so the way we express our relationship is awesome. We would literally, once we step foot on the court, he is a coach and I am a player. And there was time, it wasn't more during practice. It wasn't more during practice. It was more during the open gyms, or like when him and I would go to the gym, we would butt heads a bit, and somehow I would always end up walking home. But it was all good. But we once we got home, though, we were a family. He was my dad and I was his daughter. But going into my freshman year, he stepped down as the head coach, took that year off, and actually he officiated basketball that year. But that was, I think, just for the boys' side. So that way he had the opportunity to watch me play. That year went by and he missed it so much. He decided to apply for the position again. Unfortunately, he did not get the head coach position, but it actually worked out really well for him and I. He didn't get the position, but he asked if he could be the assistant coach. And for that, he had the opportunity to travel with us, to be on the bench and give me advice. And it is different when it's a coach and a daughter, it's a father and a daughter, but it it created a really good bonding for us,
That's
if
cool.
that makes sense.
My dad grew up playing tennis and didn't know a lot about basketball, and he was very passionate and he cared a lot, but he didn't have much to like share, and he didn't want
Yeah.
to like encroach too much, but he just didn't know
Mhm.
like how to express things, and I could just sense that he would never sit down during the games. He would always just stand, and I can still like picture him standing in the quarter by the stage in Klawock just watching the games and so nervous, unable to sit down. And I just, even though we didn't talk a lot about it, I could sense so much that he cared. And it was really cool because not a lot of kids, like a lot of kids do get that, but a lot of kids don't have that sweet spot of caring and support without being overbearing or without, oh, just, do whatever you feel like. And it ends up being kind of silly and non-competitive.
Yeah, exactly. And what's hilarious is after I graduated from Fairbanks, I moved back home and ended up playing in the men's division in City League, and him and I would be on the same team. People would start laughing at us because we would start a conversation on the court but stop midway, or start talking about a play but stop midway and then talk about another play. Like we could just read each other, just reading each other's minds and all that stuff. But people were laughing at that for sure.
That's cool. So when you did move back, was it difficult to readjust? When I came back to Klawock in 2013, it was weird because I knew that it was cold and I knew that it was dark during the winter, but I'd always had sports. So now moving back as an adult, I thought, oh my gosh, without practice, without, anything, man, it's really dark and it's really not as cool as I thought it was when I was in high school. And then moving to Ketchikan has been different because it was, a much bigger town and bigger school. But was it a little bit jarring to be back in Sitka after you graduated, or was it just feel like home again?
It so I didn't start noticing how dark it was until this year. I moved back about 3 years ago. I think I was just so used to Fairbanks. It's amazing how the climate is so different up there. Even though the elevation's not that high, it's about 500 feet up in Fairbanks. It's a dry climate, where here in Sitka or Southeast, it's a wet climate. So the dry cold, when it was -20, when it would hit -20 the first time, it felt super cold, but then it just kept getting colder and colder. But when it would go back to -20, it felt normal. Where here, in 40 degrees and it's pouring down rain and windy, it feels like it's 20 degrees. Like we actually had a wind chill like this year, and I had to pull out my college jacket just to make sure I could go to work. But my first year back, I was a busy bee. It's more when people find out you're back in town, they ask you to help out with the community. And I absolutely loved it. I was coaching middle school cross country, officiating high school volleyball, then coached middle school basketball, officiated high school basketball, and then coached middle school softball. So I was busy my first year. And then I had to make a decision on which route I wanted to go, if I wanted to go continue the coaching route or the officiating route. And I knew we were desperate for officials. And in order to make sure these kids have games, you have to have officials. And that's one of the trickiest things. So and I actually enjoyed officiating because I don't know if you've read the article or not. You get to travel, you get to meet these teams, these coaches, the players, the staff, the community, and you just get to have this great opportunity. And you can do that while you're coaching, but you're still with your team and you don't get to have these connections in other towns. So I decided to officiate my second year, full-time officiate my second year back. My mom took over the 7th and 8th grade girls. They're an off-ballers team, and then I would come in, help her here and there, or if my parents were out of town, I would go coach and do that. But this year, I was very focused. Unfortunately, I didn't do high school volleyball this year, and I was really bummed because I enjoyed, hanging out and getting to know these kids. I just started a new job this year back in September. I accepted a position as the manager at a coffee stand. And so I had to kind of focus on that this fall. But I was able to continue basketball.
Mm-hmm. It's the brochure. You make it sound very appealing to be an official. So anybody in Southeast that's listening that sounds like it would be great. But when you're in those gyms and it's a rivalry game, and well, pretty much anywhere in Southeast is somewhat of a rivalry game, just the amount of I wouldn't say abuse, but the amount of the reactions to the calls, and there's people who are broadcasting stuff on Facebook Live and are, calling out the officiating. Like, how do you handle that? Or maybe let's go to the first game. Like, were you nervous before your first high school game that you're officiating? Are you hearing fans? Are you blocking people out? What was that like, that first game?
So I started officiating when I was in college, middle school basketball, and then that same year, I asked my dad if he needed officials for our Christmas tournament because I was going to be back during the Christmas break. And you're kind of low man on the totem pole, so they'll give you those CJV games or like the first few games, but they put you with these officials who've I call them veterans. They have many years of experience. I was a bit nervous, but I was more focused on like the three man versus 2-man, just trying to learn all these new, three-man mechanics, like just little things like that. And so when you're kind of like with the with the C and JV, there's not that big of a crowd, but as the more games you get, the more repetition, and you just feel more comfortable on the court. This year was quite eventful for me. I had a petition against me to not officiate Sitka versus Edgecombe games because I called a foul and it helped Edgecombe. But you call the calls the way you see things. I grew up in Sitka. I graduated from Sitka High, but for me, I am not a biased person, and I I see what I see and I know the game. I have the background history. I grew up playing basketball. My parents were players, they were coaches. I played college basketball. I coached it. So I knew, like, you live and learn from it. But yeah, after that call, Edgecombe went to the free throw line and they scored a point, and, they made their basket, and Sitka lost by one. And then, yeah, I had a petition against me. I had a fan take a picture of me and post it on Facebook, apparently. And so, but here's the thing about that is it clearly tells you that I'm doing my job.
Mm-hmm.
And, for me personally, it's like, if you guys say this stuff, or, if you're just going to hide behind a screen, please step forward, put a stripe on, put a whistle in your mouth, and do the job for us. Because in order to have games, you need officials. But, I had the opportunity. It helped me. It made me have that, like, little spit of fire, wanting to do more and help out more, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So,
it's
yeah,
it seems like a lose-lose situation almost, because if you make a call for Sitka, of course you're going to make the call for Sitka because you went to Sitka High. If you make a call for Edgecombe, it's you overcorrecting. I remember growing up, and Rob Jackson has been officiating on Prince of Wales Island forever, and he's done a lot of regions. And I remember him going down to Heidelberg, and he's from Cake, but has ties to Heidelberg. And like, he'd make calls, and it was just, he put the focal point on himself just by doing his job. And I thought, man, I really admire the fact that at any given moment, people from Heidelberg would hate him, Craig would hate him, Kloak would hate him. But that was just, you're not being objective as a fan. You want the calls to go your way. So the fact that he was able to, take that and still officiate, and, he's well respected because of the, as many as people that don't like him or hate him for his officiating, other people think, hey, that's what you're supposed to be doing. Good job for you for being across the board and be consistent. So I really admire that. But man, that sort of attention would be really tough.
Yeah, but it just gives you that little spark saying, bring it on, and just, I'm here to help make sure these kids have the opportunity for games.
Mm.
Yeah, but I was, like, when I first started officiating, I was nervous, and then I started working my way up for varsity games my first year. And it's just due to, usually that doesn't happen, but due to short staff, we were very fortunate, and of course they will put me with they'll put me and officiate 3 games versus 1, because I'm young and I have the legs. I can manage to stay there. But it can be mentally and physically exhausting, but it's rewarding. And when you go watch over film, you're like, was this the correct call? You question some things, but then you go over the film and you message other officials, and you just there's like those, like, little moments where it's like they agree, or that was the correct call, or if it wasn't, you just learn from it, so that way you're prepared for the next game.
Mm-hmm.
But it is shocking how you just block out the sound of the crowd. It's just like playing the game. You're so focused in the game. There's just a lot to it. This year, when I was up at state, apparently I had the loudest boo in the up at state tournament, but I was just like, it was the right call, and it's okay.
Mm-hmm.
Things happen, and guess what? What I was always taught and learned is, don't worry about the last play, focus on the next one.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how I see it with all the plays now.
So how'd you get selected to be on the state officiating crew? Because that's a pretty prestigious thing to get, and be named to that so early in the career is pretty impressive. How'd that happen?
Apparently, so I don't really know how it goes, but it depends on all the regions. Usually for regions, coaches select officials, they select the top. I think you have your home officials that are automatically in regions, but then the coaches, like, you put your name in to see if you're available. You put your name in to see if you're available that week, and if you are, then you're put on a ballot, and the coaches get to pick who they want for their officials. So then it comes to polls and whatnot. And then if you get selected for that, you get, you're selected and you get to go to regions. For state, I think it is the athletic directors that put their names in. I didn't know I got nominated for 1A, 2A. And I think I'm not 100% sure, but there were some athletic directors that put my name in for 3A, 4A. But if you commit to one tournament, then you don't get selected for the other tournament. Just to make sure there's an equal opportunity for all officials.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it was. I did get selected last year as well, but unfortunately, I may have booked a Mexico trip during that time.
Mm-hmm.
So,
South
but
rather than
yes,
north.
yeah, and I was in the school district the last 2 years, and just the timing wasn't right. So, and spring break was during that tournament, and I just booked it without even thinking of it back in October, and so I was ready to go to Mexico and whatnot. But yeah, so it was really exciting to get the email saying, congratulations, you've been selected for 1A, 2A state. Do you want to confirm it? And so obviously, yeah, I selected yes. And it's a good start, if you're if you're just now starting to officiate, just so that way you can work your way up to 3A, 4A, or you can, stay at 1A, 2A. And I had it was one of the best tournaments and experiences I've ever had as an official. The crowd, you have all of these teams from all over the state, small villages, and their whole community comes and watches basketball. This year for like the semi games, they're like at the UAA Alaska Airlines facility, it was completely packed to the max, and it was loud and it was fun, and you just had both games, two games going on at the same time. You just hear the crowd cheering or booing, and it was exciting. It was a really cool experience, and I got to see a bunch of officials that I previously officiated with, and I got to meet new ones. And we have group chats. I always check in with some of the officials and see how they're doing, and it's a cool experience because then, as well as like wherever they're from, I somehow know friends that live there as well. So just small town, small community. It's a big state, but small community.
Yeah. So there has to be a difference between officiating 1A, 2A, and then 3A, 4A, and then state, and then obviously JV. Because if you called every travel and every jump ball in JV girls basketball, it'd be a 3-day game. So how do you figure out how you're going to officiate the game, or is there a difference? The skill level is going to be different. So does that impact how you officiate the game, or what's your mental approach, and does it change given the level?
So if you call every call, you're probably going to be, officiating one game for 4 hours or whatever. It depends on the level of experience. I would say more for C and JV, but there's things where you let things slide. I do. I absolutely love and enjoy officiating the C and JV games because there's not as much pressure, and there's not as much pressure as you would officiate for a varsity game. There are things that you let slide, but you also are like, for me personally, since growing up in Southeast, I know a lot of kids. I'll get to chat with them, but I will talk to them kind of in a little bit of a game in the game. You're not really supposed to, but just to help them on their skills. Like, hey, maybe you should just do a 2-foot jump stop next time. Just or practice pivoting. Yeah. So the level of experience from C and JV versus varsity is different. 1A, 2A versus 3A, 4A. I mean, it's very competitive. It actually, I would say it's at the similar level. Yeah, you have a lot of kids at the bigger schools, but I was really impressed with how the 1A, 2A division was this year. Hopefully I have the opportunity to officiate 3A, 4A state, but having regions, it was it was different as well, but it was really cool. Unfortunately, Sitka and Edgecombe are in a different region compared to when I was in high school. They're in Region 3 in the Matsu Valley with Houston and Redington. So it was a bummer not to see. This was my first 3A, 2A, 4A region tournament, but it was a bummer not to see 3A there. And, you have all these rivals but still had the opportunity to see all the kids. You had your pep club, your pep band, your cheer squad, drill teams, boys and girls basketball, the parents in the stands, just the community. It would have been really cool. But yeah, the level of basketball, I would say, are they're very similar.
Mm-hmm.
we had some kids, I know I come across and I look intimidating, which is hilarious, but I do put a smile on my face to make sure that they know I'm really fun and I like to socialize. I did have some kids look at me, or it's funny as a female official, these kids will when they hear the whistle, they'll throw their hands up, but they don't know who blew the whistle. So when they see when they see my hand up in the air, they just drop their hands because they know not to mess with me, or just having those little things. But yeah, no, they're great. It's a good level. They're really good level of experiences, I would say.
When it comes to officiating with different crews, do you kind of talk about, hey, how things are going to go, or do you happen to know different people's styles and you think, okay, this person really looks for this sort of thing and they're very meticulous about hand checks or about or whatever, one specific thing. So if you know this person is going to make a lot of those calls, do you try to balance based on them, or do you just, I'm going to zone in, I'm going to do my thing and not worry about trying to compliment or balance out the calls that someone else makes?
So obviously, I have the Sitka officials that I've been officiating with for the last 2 years or 3 years. So I'm fully aware what their calls are, but we always have this year at Regions and State, I didn't know half of the officials that I was officiating with. And if it was our first game, we're just like, we'll just test the waters and see where everyone's level of experience is at, or, how comfortable they are. We always have pre-games. We just go over like how the game, how we are in control of the game, but we focus on our primaries. We call our calls and go from there. During the game, you pretty much there's 3 primary zones, and depends on where you're at. You just focus on that primary zone. There are moments where there's the gray zone, and it could go by all 3 calls, or all 3 officials. And if you have like a double whistle, you just see where the ball was last placed, if that makes sense. But you just focus on your primary, and then after the games, or at halftime, we'll talk about some things. But once you hear the horn, we go back out on the court and we just finish the game, and then we'll talk about it later. We always for here in Sitka, we always try and do officials meetings to make sure we know what we're prepared for the upcoming week, or like we'll discuss of what happened from the previous week and what can we work on to get better, and make our crew look cleaner and crisp. So, yeah.
If someone makes a bad call or you make a bad call, how does an official say like, hey, don't worry about it, it's okay, or oh my gosh, like later on you say, dude, what was that call? Like how does that when a mistake is made, do you pick each other up? Do you not acknowledge it? How do you handle that?
We will pick each other up. So if there is a bad call, for me as an official, I always look at like what quarter it is and what time the clock stops. Excuse me. Yeah. So we'll pick each other up. Like we always try and help each other out, but at, either at halftime, like if we have our full timeouts, we'll kind of all huddle together and be like, hey, what was that? What did you guys see? But we'll kind of like discuss it more at the end of the game. It's just like a quick little mini session, and then we'll go back to our spots. But we always discuss it after our games. And like I said, we focus on instead of worrying about the last play, focus on the next one. But us as officials, we always have to double check on what the correct call was. Yeah, you kind of, and then for me personally, I will kind of get a little nervous after that and be like, oh man. But next thing you know, you kind of do a makeup call for it, or your officials will help you out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
So,
I think about as a teacher, if like the superintendent or principal walks in and then a kid does something and now it's like, oh man, how do I handle this? And if how I handled that issue with the student is different than how the principal would have, and a supportive principal is like, oh, that's might not have been what I did, but I respect the decision that you made, the call you made there. Or you go to another teacher's classroom and you see something like that and the kid is acting out and you would handle it in a totally different way. And sometimes they try to handle it in a way, but then it's you're never going to be perfect. So it's nice to have not feel like you're on an island where everybody is judging you and your colleagues are putting you down or going to just talk behind your back or roll their eyes at you. So it's kind of tricky.
Yeah. You're not like, even us officials, we're not going to have a perfect game. We're always going to have small mistakes, silly calls, but we'll focus on it later after the game. Mm. So, but once you see it on film, like one of my good officials, his name's Troy Wingard, he always says film don't lie. So and I'm like, you know what, that is the one thing that I always think of. So whenever I go back and watch film, it shows exactly what happened. So film don't lie.
Yeah. So what's the future? Are you looking to do college games eventually? NBA, WNBA? What's the Olympics? How far are you going to take this?
So from the first day of the tournament, apparently I have actually heard, like the GNAC conference Division II heard about me, and I think they would like me to try and get to the collegiate level, which is really cool, and that's a great opportunity and experience. There is a girl from Southeast who lives up in Fairbanks now. I can't remember her last name, but
Cassie?
Her name's Cassie.
Yeah.
Yeah, she's from Coloc. She actually officiates GNAC college girls games, and I think it would be a really cool opportunity and experience, and it's a really exciting moment, as a third-year official, having this little moment. It's really cool, and the only tricky thing for me is that I live in Sitka on an island, but with my job, my boss is amazing, and she understands that I really enjoy helping the community out and helping these kids and working with them. She understands that I really enjoy officiating basketball, and we work my schedule around the season, and somehow we've managed to work. It worked out really well. Like, we have amazing workers who are willing to step in, and it's awesome because our generation now these days, it's hard to find workers. Mm-hmm. So, yeah.
What about, oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
What else in Sitka as far as the Sitka life there? Are you planning on staying there? Is it home for good? What do you think?
Oh man, that's tricky because it's like, I'm in the middle where it would be great to move somewhere else, but at the same time, I have a great job and I have a bunch of friends here. My parents, it's hard to believe my dad plans on retiring next year. I don't know what their route's going to be, but it's really, I always forget how fun it is to be here. I enjoy it, and I love the small town community and helping, supporting the community. And with my job, I was going to move to Petersburg, but the job was too hard to pass up on. So I do see myself settling here for sure. Yeah, but if I have this opportunity with officiating basketball, I think it would be kind of pretty cool to see how far I could go. I have this opportunity with college, and I think I'll take the opportunity. And if it can push me, if it can get me further, it'd be great. I already have connections down south friends that have connections and that are willing to help me out. During the Clark Cochran Christmas Classic tournament, there was a team from Seattle one of the assistant coaches that, they reached out. They're like, we'd love to have you come down to Seattle. And if there's any games, or if you're in town and you want to pick up any games, it'd be great. Just, it's a cool opportunity and it'd be really fun. I don't know how the chances are, but they're pretty high, or chances are pretty low with me going the professional route, but it would be really cool. Maybe Division 1 or something. That is probably my goal. But yeah, so I think Sitka, I will settle down for sure if the officiating route doesn't go too far.
What would you recommend for people that either criticize referee officials a lot, or people who are thinking about maybe volunteering and getting involved in officiating? What would be your pitch for that?
I would always tell them to recommend trying it out to get their foot in the door. It's a great opportunity to see if you like it or not. And I always tell them if they have any questions about anything to always feel free to reach out to me. I always tell them, just try it out and see if you like it. And if you do, it's great because it means you're helping your community out. And if not, it gave you that opportunity. And who knows, you might want to come back to it later. Yeah, that's kind of pretty much how it goes for me. But I always try and have a lot of people. If kids aren't going off to college, or if they come back from college, or if they're in college, I always tell them to try it out, see if they like it, start at the low level. And if they enjoy it, work their way up. And so, yeah, it's really cool. And it keeps them busy, which is great.
Mm-hmm.
Keeps their minds going. It is a mental and physical game as an official because you have to focus on your primary and make sure you call the correct calls. You're multitasking. You're watching the players in your primary zone. You're running back and forth. You're fully aware of the clock. You're fully aware of the coaches if they need to call timeouts. But it's a fun little challenge. But for me as an official, I always ask my teammates, what their goal is for this game and what is our team goal together, and see if we can accomplish that. But yeah, like I with new people that want to try it out, I always try and help them, if I'm in town, let's just say if I go to Ketchikan and there's people that want to try it out, I would love to work with them so that way they are not feeling so intimidated. But yeah.
How many technical fouls have you called, and do you remember your first one?
I called. Well, yeah, you heard that story. My first tech was against my father. It was the Mount Edgecombe Invitational Tournament, adult tournament. I played 2 games, coached 2 games, officiated a game. This was the last game of the night. It was supposed to be a 3-man crew, but one of our officials forgot to show up, so it ended up being 2-man. My legs were tired, my bladder was full, and I played with my dad. I played on the same team with my dad, and he plays against people my age. So I know what he was capable of doing. These guys were cherry picking, and he goes up and he gets hit. I didn't call it, and he looks at me and he yells, "Blow your whistle." And that's when I teed him up. So that was my first technical. Another fun technical, not really fun, but it was against Kelly Smith, who is he was another coach of mine. It was pretty funny because, I didn't grow up in Ketchikan, but I was part of the community. I played for Kelly for his AAU team, and that was a fun experience. I was going to move to Ketchikan when I was in high school and play for him. But yeah, so all of the former alumni K-High girls found out I teed Kelly up. That was hilarious. Coach Smith thought that was hilarious. Everyone's jaws dropped when they saw that happen because they wouldn't expect it, but he was kind of calm for it. But overall this year, I think I gave 5 technicals in a week once, 2, 3. I would probably say I'm at like 10 technicals in 3 years.
Hmm.
But yeah, and I don't like doing it, but you have to figure out how to control the game and make sure it doesn't get so spicy.
Yeah.
That's the best way to put it.
Yeah. It's
But
good.
yeah. So yeah, I don't for technicals I don't really enjoy the taunting, players being rude or coaches, because we are in control of the game, and if it gets too out of control, it just does not look good on this. It doesn't look good on the teams, but it doesn't look good on us officials because then it looks like we're letting things go when we should not be.
Yeah, it seems like there's a lot more stuff the kids are seeing. Like kids always have emulated their heroes or the professional athletes in whatever sport it is, but it seems like now with social media, there's just a lot more little things, little taunting things, celebrations, things like that. So if a kid does some sort of stupid little thing there, you're like, hey, knock that stuff off, or do you kind of let it go for a little bit until it gets over the top, or how do you manage some of the showboating type stuff?
So it depends on how rude it is. It depends on how it is or what they do. Usually it's a warning, but sometimes, there's players that will look at the bench or yell at our officials, then I will just tee them up just because they need to realize that it's not okay to do that. But yeah, it's amazing. It's kind of shocking what the professionals what the professionals show. And then you see it on social media and kids think it's okay to do that, but in reality it's not. It just doesn't make your team look good.
Mm-hmm.
I don't actually watch it's funny, as growing up playing playing ball or just playing sports, I never really watched professional sports. I always loved college because you're giving it your all and you don't know if you're going to get drafted or not. But it's not there's taunting. There's a difference between professional and college, because with college coaches don't allow it, and that is the thing that I really enjoy about it. And then like with professional, that you just see these things and it's not okay. But yeah, so it depends on what it is. Slamming the ball is a tricky one. Usually that's a technical, but it depends if it's intentional or not. So yeah. Mm-hmm.
Crazy. I'm happy that people like you are willing to do that, but I just cannot picture myself officiating. I enjoyed my time coaching basketball, but now it's just kind of nice to just watch and quietly observe.
Yeah, no, I agree. People were shocked that I chose officiating over coaching just due to my parents. They were both coaches, and I coached under them, and people were shocked. But you're still, as an official, you're still part of the community, and I think that's what I enjoy about it. It's if you read the article, you get your conditioning in, you get the best seats in the house, you get to make the calls, and you just get to hang out with the community. And it's nice that you can show up an hour before the game, do your pregame, officiate the game, and you can walk away. But yeah, with coaching, it's tough because or it's not tough. It's just it was tough for me to choose which route I wanted to go. And I love working with the kids, but I knew we were so short staffed on officials that we just, and unfortunately, and this is a joke, I said we've had the same officials since my mom was in high school, and it needs to be changed. And so, we need new people to come in and step up. And once they realize it's worth it. Mm-hmm. It's worth every minute of it. So yeah, I mean, my dad, hopefully once it was funny because we were talking, and he was like, I don't know what I'm going to do in the winter. I was like, I looked at him and I was like, I know exactly what you can do and you can be part of it. And he looked at it, and that's, you can become an official even once you retire. And it's really fun.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm looking forward, hopefully. And we've officiated a couple games together, and it's hilarious because we just did our hoops and herring tournament, and he blew his whistle in my primary zone, and I looked straight at him, and he just smiled because he knew exactly what he did.
Mm-hmm.
And then as a payback, I did the same thing. But we just look at each other and we'll just smile and giggle, and then just continue to work. But yeah, it's even if like they retire, there's people that I've heard that have like coached and then they ended up switching over to officiating because they love to be still be part of the program.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, no, I really enjoy it. I actually hope to I see myself doing this for a long time, and that it's awesome.
Cool.
So yeah.
Well, thanks for coming on here and chatting about it. It's been good to catch up. Tell your parents hello for me.
I sure will. Yeah, it was good to catch up, and it was fun to see you and the family and the baby, at the games, and hopefully I'll see you guys more.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. Well, take care. Have a good one.
All right. You too. Bye.